Hi, everybody. I am here with my friend David, who I've never met in person, but we have shared a client and we have a lot of similar training in common. And he agreed to have a chat today and tell me about life as a therapist on the island of Australia. And I have to say, I'm jealous and want to move there because it sounds amazing. But yes, so would you continue with what you were going to say and tell me, how you got to be where you are right now?
Well, Australia is huge. So I was from the eastern side of Australia, which is very different than the western side of Australia. It's like two different countries, or it was at the time.
Mm.
So I moved from the east to the west because my father got a big promotion. So my intention was to go into physical therapy, which was physiotherapy. The passion was running, so the intention was to go to the Olympics. Everything fell apart. So when we moved from one side to the other, I didn't get into physiotherapy.
Oh,
because it was a very small school. It was only a school of 12 students.
yep.
And so it was my
Wow.
time. I know. But so I got sent off to the university just to start a science degree, which was great, but I didn't know what I wanted to do because science is just massive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was all a bad year. So I was training because the Olympics were the next year, and I was very, very good at running. And the intention was to qualify and then compete. But I had two accidents, and I didn't get into physiotherapy, started my science degree, and everything fell off the track because no one could really help me. Because I remember going to the doctors and going, I can't run like I did. And he would look and he said, but look at the size of your legs. They're like tree trunks. I know, but they don't work. Something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I got sent off to different therapists and no one could really help. So my degree starts, and then one of my mates that I met at uni, we said, oh, let's do a massage course. So we did a massage course. This is in 1980, so long ago.
Yeah.
And my degree was heading in a direction. So I loved functional systems. So I was doing physiology, and I ended up with a triple major. So it was neurophysiology, biophysics, and organic chem.
Wow.
So then, but what happened was, when you're doing science like that, it's heading you to do the PhD.
Yeah.
I'm okay, I'm reasonably bright, but I'm not an academic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you end up with a PhD, you're so refined in what you wanted to do. And it was going to be, I would have been in neurophysiology, becoming an audiologist type of thing. That was where I was going. But because I had these three different majors, they're all asking, do you want to do work in here, do work in there? And I just said, look, I just went and started education to see what it was like. So I went in education instead of the PhD, but I still loved doing manual work. So I was already working manually, just using massage. But then I went into education, and because when I'd go to a school would say, so what can you teach? And what do you want me to teach? I can teach anything. So I could teach any of the maths or the physics or the chemistry or the human biology, anatomy, anything. Didn't make any difference. So they paid for me to go and do postgraduate studies, but that was in education. I never really wanted to do education because on the side, I was doing massage. And when I was at uni, I started yoga, and I started my own yoga school, and I was doing massage, and I became a running coach, and everything was falling into place that I could work on people, but I needed more answers. So I ended up on one side I was doing education stuff, so I ended up with my masters and stuff. But then I ended up going into therapy work. So I did physiology, and then I did applied physiology.
Oh my goodness.
So they're all hands-on work. Well, I'm still in the classroom. So that's how I got into becoming a therapist. But I just kept studying because I went off to Bali to go and finally get some yoga qualifications, which was like 25 years after I started yoga, even though I was running my own school and all stuff like that. So they asked me to stay on, and as a therapist, as teacher of anatomy and physiology, and also as a yoga teacher. So I would be working in Bali, but flying back to Australia and going up and back, up and back, up and back. So,
was it a long flight?
it was shorter to go to Bali than to fly across Australia.
Oh,
It
wow.
was cheaper to go to Bali than go across Australia. That's one of the dilemmas that happens with neurokinetic therapy when I had to do it the first time. Was my kinesiological background was heading in a direction. I went, but kinesiology is not, it's hands-on, but it's not like a therapist as in massage type of stuff.
Yep.
So I wanted to find out to see what else I could do. And I said, who's working with reactivity patterns? And David's came up. So I got in contact with him and I said, do you ever come to Australia? And he said, no. He had a bad experience because when I chatted to him, he said, something went wrong. And he went to where I came from in Sydney. And then he didn't want to come back. So he said, then he ended up sending a message because he was sending Kathy Dooley over to Sydney. And so that's how my first experience of NKT was meeting up David, finding out who works in a certain way and how I can advance my knowledge.
That's really cool. Is there a lot of people, well, you did start by saying you're pretty isolated, but are there any other practitioners that you have near you that you can network with?
Well, not initially. I was the first West Australian to do NKT, go over to Sydney. It was one of the first NKT Australians, because I flew out of the country to go and do an NKT, went to London. But what happened is there's a group of us as kinesiologists, and we did a protocol called neuro-organizational technique, which is very really a protocol base that you can work on the whole body and you can partition it all up. So let's work to you structurally, let's isolate that, then we can work on your physiological systems, then we can do your emotional systems. So as kinesiologists, it was a great protocol. So when I did NKT, there was a group of us of kinesiologists that I said, you have to see how this works. So was this an upgrade? Was this NKT? Was this an upgrade of what we're doing?
Yeah.
And so we'd practice. And so there was all three of us, and two of these ladies, they flew off to Taiwan because it was cheaper to go there than to go to Sydney or Melbourne to do NKT. So they went and did it with Jackie up in Taipei.
Oh, yeah.
So then we would play. But they're kinesiologists. Well, I don't call myself a true kinesiologist because I love structural, hands-on, real physical muscle competence. We'd call it muscle testing. I just go muscle competence.
Yeah.
But they work in a different way because they work on the person's emotional setups and their spiritual systems and their brain work patterns, which is another massive protocol that's come out of kinesiology.
Wow.
So in a group of people, no. Where I am, no. And then Perth, and I went up to Perth to do some work, and finally some Perth people have started to do it, but we don't get together that often. We did for a bit, but it just fell flat on its face.
Yeah, so that's often how it is, unless there's, or my experience anyways, unless there's someone very invested in building the community, that it just doesn't really catch on. It's like a nice idea. It might go for 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 times, and then
that's what happened. So it was very sad because when I went over to London, I was finally met David, and I did NKT 2 and 3, and then when I came back to work in Perth, and it just added on to what I did, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
Then he said, can you, because I was the closest NKT 3 person, and to fly up to Taipei to work with Jackie and him with NKT 3 the first time, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But when I was talking to him, I said, I try my best to get it to go, but it doesn't seem to go. Yeah. So me and playing NKT, and as it is, I don't even know if I'm doing NKT because it morphed so much into what I was already doing. And I really didn't have play dates with anyone that was above my level ever. Yeah. So I never really knew where I was. So when I would answer questions in, say, the Neurokinetic Therapy Forum, I just went, I don't even know if I'm doing what I'm doing is exactly what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Because you'd be the same as with all your moves that you've done. You just go, it's all morphed into what you love or how you love to work.
Right.
So,
I'm for sure not doing NKT the way I was taught. I do know this. But that's okay. I mean, I think that happens to any person doing any modality. We take what we know, we use what we can, and we make a new thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Although it does make it hard to have a conversation about it with others.
Well, it's like listening to Thomas talking, and everyone gets excited when Thomas presents a thought, or he offers a particular way of investigation, or how he looks at something. It's just like, it's inspiring. You just wonder, you just love to see how he's going. And me having a play date with anybody, which doesn't happen. So when he flew over, I think he flew over to Melbourne once, and he did a course, and it's very expensive for me to fly across Australia. As I said, it'd be cheaper for me to go to any course up in Singapore or any Asian country than to go across Australia. When Kathy said, would I come over and help with NKT3? And I went, it's exceptionally expensive. And I didn't realise that it was, David was funding it. So, and then, like I said, I can't. And I remember I flew over to help with NKT1. And funded it all myself, and didn't realise that David was willing to pay for your flight. And I went, oh, silly sausage.
Yeah. I got to go with him to Taipei for the first time in 2014, and that was a blast.
Isn't it? Like, what an amazing country.
It was, yeah.
Amazing place. And the people are just the nicest people.
They're really nice. I can remember being confused about the food, though.
It's just like if they're going to do Indian or they're going to do an Asian type of food, they do it so well. It doesn't matter what it is. You go, what am I going to choose? It doesn't matter. It's going to be excellent. Yeah,
and they were the best hosts. They were so kind.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder if they still do those courses in that old hospital, wherever that was that we went. It was a hospital. Yeah, or a university, actually. It was a big university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I remember going there, and there was the quality of the students that were there. You just go, oh, you want me to explain this? My anatomy is not that good. Everyone thinks my anatomy is awesome. I went, no, compared to some people I know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not great with anatomy. And so I was like, well, I can tell you all about instincts. Instincts and intuition, I am very good at. If you want to know what we're touching right now, I'm not the girl.
I love how you've come that way, because when I'm reading all your posts, I'm like, wow, that is so cool that you've headed that direction.
Yeah, I've kind of let go of a lot of that. Like the need to be super intellectual.
Yes.
And I've let some of that relax, because a lot of times it's kind of arbitrary what we're on when we're treating, right? Somewhat arbitrary. We're on some part of the body that needs support.
And as you say, where you're working, you have so many quality people to work with.
Yeah.
So they can go from door to door if they need it.
That's exactly true. Thank God. Thank God for the people I work with, because if I have someone in my office who needs a chiropractic adjustment, I can just knock on my neighbor Tori's door and say, do you have a spot?
Isn't that funny?
It's amazing. It's really helpful. Yeah. Well, so along the way, you've learned many techniques. Was there one technique that you learned where you were just like, you felt like you were underwater and you did not know what was happening? There was just too much, or it was very challenging to learn?
Not really. No. No, I'm blessed. As I try to explain to people, blessed because I had to teach. Mm-hmm. So because I had to teach anatomy, I had to teach physics, I had to teach chemistry. Mm-hmm. But the knowledge was always had to be so much higher than the kids that I was teaching. And I'm blessed in that sense that when I have to teach something, I have to rip it apart and reconstruct it to a level that a year 9 student, a 14-year-old would understand. So whether I'm teaching to an adult or a child, it always comes, go down to this level, go up to there. So when I'd go into any course, whether it was David's or it was all these things with the kinesiology, it was just I would get it. But what I did, which was really cool, is I would always film it or tape it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always go, I'm not going to get it straight away. It's going to make sense, but I'm going to have too many questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I would then review it, and then I'd write it all up. And then the next thing was I would rip it apart again and put it back into my knowledge, which was already constructed. So I'd keep lifting what I already had.
Mm-hmm.
So I would walk away and I would write up protocols. So specific protocols to go, okay, I'm going to deal with this person. Which protocol I'm going to use? I'm going to pull off from an acupoint type of thing, or I'm going to use a chakra-based thing, or I'm going to work completely structural, and then overlap. So I think that in relationship, what you've asked is the biggest was neurological organizational technique, because it was just this massive course that just took weeks and weeks and weeks. It would have been like a PDTR, which I've never had the chance to do. So, so I'd step away and then put it all back together again, and then go, what's next? What's next? That's why I got through NKT really quickly, because I tried to get it all done within 1 year, because it just goes.
Yeah, you don't need to stretch that out too much.
Yeah, I don't want to stretch that out.
I love how you've had this parallel path or similar path with learning, body work, but also learning yoga, learning how to teach yoga, that a lot of people would think that's like two different paths, but you've like married them and brought them together. What made you go down the yoga path? What inspired that?
Well, no one could help me to run. That would because I had this accident, and I had this passion that I wanted to run and race well. Because I was a sprinter, but I wasn't I could make a state final, but I couldn't make an Australian final as a sprinter. But when I picked up the distances to when I got to 400 and 800, now I was in my own element. And everyone go, well, how can you hold pace so fast when I'm a sprinter? So what ended up happening is I got into yoga because it was the only thing that made me feel okay that I could run. I couldn't run at light speed anymore, not like that. But I could still run well, and I could compete, and I'd be competitive, but I wouldn't humiliate like what I used to be able to do.
Yeah.
So the yoga helped. I went through so many variations of yoga. So like everyone talked about Bikram, and I did Bikram in 1981. So then I did it for multiple years until I fell into Ashtanga and power yoga, and then I went into dynamic yoga, and then now I've got my own school. So all the stuff that happens, say like on the table, I'm going to be using concepts of, say, pendulations and somatic work. Is going, you have to use the basic concepts of how the body set itself up to recorrect it. So my yoga is part of my healing. Going, the person's going to go, well, is this going to hold? And I go, no, it will not hold. It's the same as if I'm going to teach you how to balance chemical equations, or teach you algebra, or teach you physics, you have to go home and practice. The same as if you want this body to be better, you have to give it something better than what it's doing at the moment. So like Gary Ward's Anatomy in Motion was brilliant, because it just went, this is total articulation of joint movement patterns, and you can follow the joint movement patterns with a walking pattern or a postural. And so therefore you can see where it's wrong. And when I was working in Bali and Thailand, it was like, you could see, you said, your yoga's out because your fundamental pendiculatory patterns are wrong. So they're going to, I'm going to try to strengthen it. When you can't strengthen something that's off. If it's off, you're out. And they're going to go, but look at me, I'm really supple. When you're hypermobile, you're not strong. I'll push you around because you can't resist any pressure on you at all. So yoga was a great tool to visualize. Walking's a great pattern to watch, and you can see where things are wrong. And running's beautiful, because if a person goes, you're going to try to correct yourself by running yourself into the ground. When your shoulders are up and your hands are locked in fists, and just going, it just tells you all the core joints, all the core musculature systems are all out. So yoga's I love my yoga, but where it's gone is not what it was. And they go, what type of yoga do you use? Are you hatha? I went, hatha just means physical yoga.
That is not a thing.
There's Yana yoga, Raja yoga, they're all parts of the Ashtanga. The Ashtanga levels of what life is all about. So yoga's really cool. And even like when I was teaching physics, you get these people, how can you say that you're a scientist and but you want to do yoga? When, oh my God, yoga is an understanding of yourself, while physics is your fundamentals of what this universe is all about. So you can't really separate the two, because they're so entangled.
Do you still have a yoga school?
No. There's more. When I was doing yoga, there wasn't a lot of us. When I had a yoga school, I was younger. I was in my 30s. And now I'm just going, don't come to me to go and do yoga. There's so many people that do beautiful yoga, and they look beautiful, but it's, to be naughty, I'm just going to say that very much it's ego-based, because you want to look good. But my stuff, I said, you come to me to do my classes, which is all about regaining mobility, creating connectivity to what your body is, and then we can get into yoga. Then we can play with our yoga to upgrade our body, not hold the pose to say, oh, we're just going to go into this pose for 2 minutes and just breathe into it. Please don't talk to me at that level. There's what you want to do with your body is at a much higher level. You've got to get your fundamentals correct, and then you can lift it to the pose and then play with the pose to create better mobility patterns, so everything connects even better. So I won't do a school. I run classes and I run workshops. So yoga people said, oh, we've got to come. We learn so much from you. And I said, yes, you come to me to upgrade your knowledge and how the body works in relationship to yoga. But if you want to come to learn how to do Virabhadrasana 1, hold Virabhadrasana 1, I'm not the person to do that, because there's a whole lesson on just that one pose. What you can do.
I think that's one of the blocks for people when they want to begin yoga. Like my partner Noah, he's former linebacker.
Yes.
I don't know. Now I'm probably getting his position wrong. But anyway, he's a big guy. He's 260, 6'2", and he doesn't bend very much. So he would not be someone to put into like maybe your standard yoga class.
No.
He needs to do some foundation work, right? Is that how you would work with him? Do some foundation work first?
Yes. Yeah. So the foundation work is really cool. So it's all, as I said, it's pendiculations and somatic work. So just I always call it, there's your 3 fundamental pendiculation movement patterns, which becomes an X-axis, a Y-axis, and a Z-axis. So I don't talk like an anatomist. I go, let's just talk like a year 9 person. So you want to correct, so like a vertical axis was a rotational pattern, but you've got to correct all the way out to the toes, to the fingers, so you can see where the error is and you correct it. But the cool thing with the pandiculation is that what happens is all that cogging system that Gary talked about, that you also have, you have you have the anatomy trains, that everything has to follow each other. So what ends up happening is, because it's, to me, I just go, a pandiculation is law. So what ends up happening, for me to turn this head, the law is, my vestibular ocular reflex has to follow my head. But if I look at you and I end up doing a lateral flexion, so I'm going to do an X-axis movement, my eyes, my vestibular ocular reflex stays straight, but my jaw tracks. But in a rotational pattern, this follows. So you can
Yeah.
see where the error is, but you can use that pattern to connect to the next cog. So the head goes, oh, this shoulder goes back, but this shoulder follows. This hand goes into supination, or this one goes into pronation. But it connects all the way through the whole body. So you can get the body to self-correct, and then you can use like active release technique to actually engage within and work on the proprioceptors within the tendons and the musculature system to reset that particular pattern. So with someone that's very stiff, you go, let's get those patterns on correct, because they must be correct first, because if you want to go and walk, you're going to be walked and dictated by the restrictions within the fundamental patterns. So,
yeah. Your stiffness is going to walk you.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not heard of anyone using ART that way. Or maybe I'm just not understanding, but the way I've seen people use active release technique is through just each muscle, not in a way of like connecting it to these movements. That's pretty neat.
But directional testing is really cool, because you're going to go in a relationship to a fundamental pattern. This has to go on, this has to go off. So you're going to go, am I going to work on that muscle that's actually contracting, or am I going to go onto the muscle that's actually relaxing? And go, do both. But you can go, well, who's correct? You go, well, if I go to the proprioceptors that are associated with this particular tendon, these ones are going to be facilitating, while these ones are going to be inhibited. So you go, well, who's correct? Well, beat both of them up. And you're going to feed it through your survival system. So go through your amygdala into your hippocampus and your basal ganglia and reset that, remap that. So you can remap here and then access into the head, and then access the survival systems and remap the amygdala, and then reboot it and put it back into the basal ganglia in a better sense. So
is there an easy...
Oh,
sorry.
No, you tell... sorry.
I was going to ask if there's an easy way for you to explain how you do that remapping part, or is that just part of the kinesiology testing that you do and would be challenging to explain?
No, not really. Is when I used to answer questions in neurokinetic therapy, and I would go, what like a particular problem would come up. So like a person would say, oh, they've got this issue. So whether it's NKT 1, 2, or 3, I would go, what you wish to do is the body doesn't like to fail, much the same as like you and me. There's nothing that we want to do is I'm going to deliberately go out and do as bad as I possibly can. We don't do that. And the body doesn't do that either. It's genetically set up to go, I'm going to be as best as I can at what I do. But genetically, I'm set up to protect myself and look after this body so you can use it.
Yeah.
So what I do is I go, if you make the body fail, and multiple fail. So I used to say, globally make the body fail. So everything inside the head, the survival systems, the motor control centers just go, oh no,
yeah,
something's wrong. Shit, yeah. So you can go quite simply, you can use a very simple pendiculation, which is going, I can place my hands here, and as soon as I touch my face, you get a vagal response or a fascial response. The body goes, oh, breathe in. The breath is so integrated into the survival systems that the breath goes, oh, I'll reset. So it resets the breath. So therefore you can introduce it into another pattern, which will go, oh, I'm just going to do like a sagittal movement pattern. So I'm just going to do a y-axis movement pattern. That y-axis pattern is a fundamental. And you go, well, who's important? Well, the breath is like a trump card. It has to be correct. It's the prime functional system of your body. Go, if you don't breathe, you die. So the body goes, oh, breathing's better than dying. And the body's going, well, this is a correct pattern as well. So the eyes will follow the movement, the head will follow the movement, the jaw will follow the movement. So what happens is, say if like someone's got a shoulder problem, I'm going to go, oh, I want you to start to move. Let's just find out. So you can do a physical test to see if it's wrong or right. And then you go, let's check it within a pattern. And you beat this one up, and then you can go through that. You can go onto the tendon, or you can go along the musculature system and reboot that in relationship to it, then feed it back through the limbic system.
Oh.
And the body goes, oh, that's much better than what I was doing. I think I will let that one go.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's not complicated. You can go complicated. You can go, oh, let's hold anatomy mode and physiology mode and go into the amygdala and isolate this and do an emotional. And you can do all that if you want. You know, do you want to hold this pattern? Yes or no? Do you want to let it go? So you can put an emotional content within it, or you can just go, let's just correct it first. Let's get the fundamentals correct. So the body goes, oh, this is much better than what I was doing. I'm going to let what I was going gone. And then it starts to install it. But it's just that hard wiring that you've got to do through the MCC is you've got to make sure that, okay, you've got to repeat these patterns. And you're going to go, well, like NKT is going to go, just isolate one particular component with it and strengthen that, and then turn down that that's overactive. And I go, you can do that if you want to, or you can give it a full pattern where the whole body goes back to being like a baby. And it goes, I will go back to a fundamental pandiculation, and that fundamental, that's law. That's a law. That pattern is the most important pattern that should be correct. So if you keep reintroducing the fundamental patterns and you keep hardwiring it and you keep removing any limbic associations with it, which can be a physical limbic issue or it can be an emotional limbic issue, you just want to get the person better. So how I work.
So what would a piece of homework like look like for this person with the shoulder thing? Would you send them home literally with like self-release and doing this exercise?
No, it's easier. If I put it down to one word, I said, you need to walk.
Oh, nice.
The thing that I'm writing up at the moment is going, but there's 10 things that you have to create awareness of with your walking pattern. So I go, before you get out of bed, you must go through what I call the 4 pillars. Is you must get access and get control of your own, the association between self and the body. So to create awareness of self and the body is, there must be a way of how you access, where you go, the body will calm itself down, and you're accessing through the limbic system, and then you get in control of the limbic system in your own way, and then you will do some basic movement patterns within bed before you get out of bed, and you're checking that you have total awareness and total connectivity to any joint, any muscle, or the whole fascial system. And then what you've got to do is it's time to get out of bed. Before you get out of bed and you place your feet on the ground, you must reset with weight on the ground. Because me being a physicist is going, your body only recognizes something's wrong if there's a reference point. So how big is something is you're going to have to put a unit on the side of it. So I go, how big is it? I'm 5. I went, 5 what? So you give it a unit. Your body recognizes if something's wrong by putting weight on the feet. So as soon as you put the feet on the ground and you articulate down through your pandiculations or your movement patterns, the body goes, oh, therefore the proprioceptors within the feet reset the whole vestibular system. Then it becomes, right, now I want you to walk, but you need to walk with total awareness of what you're doing. So I just go, you pick one movement pattern, swing your arms. Once you swing your arms, take associations to what your hand is doing in relationship to the movement, move up to the next cog, which will be your elbow, to your shoulders, feel the connectivity. But as soon as you integrate multiple cogs in relationship to your whole clocking system, which is your body goes, oh, every other cog has to participate within that. And then you keep upgrading. So you keep bringing associations to your feet, to your ankle, to your knee, to your hip. And then you go, I'll go through my X, my Y, my Z patterns, and then I keep upgrading. Because I explained to the person going, your first patterns that your body did were the simple ones is, where's mum? She's got the milk, and it does this one. But where's mum? I've got to get up. So it creates the vertical pattern. then it crawls, but crawls not walking.
Mm-hmm.
But walking requires the arms to swing. And when a little kid makes a decision to get and move away from walking, it goes into running, but it goes like a blowfly. It just goes fast all the time. And so the concept is if you don't swing your arms and you don't upgrade your body's not going to get better. So the idea is you want to get into your walking patterns, create the walking patterns, and make the walking patterns self-correct the whole body. And the body gets better. And then the person comes back going, well, yeah, but this hurts here. And, okay, now we can do local work, but you've got to get the whole body correct structurally in as best possible way that it can, and you keep upgrading it. So.
Yeah. And as you're speaking about this, it makes me think of, from a spiritual or emotional perspective, you're teaching people how to really be in their bodies and how to pay attention and be conscious of what's happening.
Exactly. Yes.
And when you do that, a lot of things self-correct.
Yes.
It's like shining the light in the darkness, and then, things just resolve in some way. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like it.
And I'd love to see what other people do. Like, there's some superheroes out there, but we're all so far away. Like, you're not, where all these, like, Jory's near you. I think he's back in the States, isn't he?
Jory? Oh, yeah, I don't know where he is now. Where in the world is Jory?
I think he was stuck in Thailand, right?
Was he? Cool.
Jory's with you, isn't he?
Well, he's in California. Yeah.
Oh, he's moved. Right.
So he was going to move to Denver, but he decided not to. So he's living like essentially off grid. He's living on this farm in the wilderness with his partner and is expecting a baby.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So there's people sprinkled everywhere. It would be cool. It's almost like somebody should plan an online symposium. Wouldn't that be fun?
I know that, like, Marissa set up that hive mind, and it's lovely to see what is happening with that.
Yeah.
So many lovely comments, and then they're running little bits. But as you say, a big symposium, an online symposium, which is maybe we're being challenged in such a way because we're having to use this medium so much more. Or as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be cool.
Yeah, it could be cool. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Putting that on my list of things to think about.
No, leave it in your court. You're a lady and you're very organised. And so I remember Thomas was talking about, no, it wasn't Thomas, John talking about you used to write lots of notes. And then I remember I think I had one set of your notes from something from within NKT going, gosh, how did you ever get that so organised within a class framework?
Oh, I didn't. I mean, I was just like you. I used to write down my notes, and then I would go home and watch the videos, and literally, I was like a court stenographer. I would take down every word, and then I would reorganize it in a way that made sense to me, that flowed correctly.
Yes.
And then I ended up sharing them because I thought I put that much work into them. I might as well share them around. Everybody else can use them too. Yeah.
What's next for you then?
Well, yeah. So my work is changing a lot. I have been doing body work for a long time, not as long as you, but since 2001, I've been a PT, and and I'm doing much less of that now. I do primarily hypnotherapy now.
I've never touched that. It'd be a great thought.
Yeah. So I do a lot of hypnotherapy, and I'm also beginning to teach people how to work with energy, how to do energy work online. And I love it. I love it. I love helping people. I love to empower people to do their own healing.
Yes, they have to.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I'm really done with the paradigm of people needing me. I'm not the healer. I just play one on TV.
Love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really want people to understand that they're in charge of their own healing, and It's their job.
Mm.
Just like you said, no, whatever we did today is not going to stick unless you go out and take action in your life
Mm.
and make it stick. If you want this, you got to make it stick. Yeah.
My father used to have wonderful sayings all the time. He said, look, a long time dead. So you've got to make sure that where you're here, you do as best as you can, and don't waste what you have within your head.
Yeah.
He was a great man, my dad. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
What's next for you?
Well, I'm writing a course at the moment because I have a lovely friend from when I did NKT. So I have friends all over the planet. So I'm writing a course at the moment. So I'm writing up in two. So there's the therapist type course, which is I'm doing at the moment. So it's overlapping so many things because I just shortcut so many things going. You can do that if you wanted to, but
yeah, simple.
It would be best to get the gross stuff on first and then you can isolate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And I've run workshops, which are, as I said, it's a wasted brain of mine if I don't teach. So I've run workshops as in, is it yoga when we get to yoga, but you've got to get the basic understanding first, but understand how the body works as in law. So I've done them. And then we tried to set up to go to Bali in August. So I'll be running a big course, which would be, it's more the, is it yoga? Yeah, we'll get to yoga. But then I'm going to work as a therapist as well. So there would be a morning mobility walking class.
Yeah.
And then like me doing hands-on work. And then there'd be an evening class, which is then going to be like, I'd go, oh, is it a rehabilitation or is it a restorative yoga? When, yes, it is, but you've got to get there. So that would be, there's that. So that was going to be in August, but that's totally belayed because of what's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
But as in doing studies, there's so many things to go and learn. But it's probably best, as I said, at the moment for me to go as wasted stuck in my head unless I teach what I'm doing. And people have said all the time. So the physiological basis was how do you access into systemic stuff as well? You can do it this way. So at the moment I did, when we were all in serious lockdown, I just did up a whole series of videos, which was my people that come to me, they go, well, I can't remember what I've got to do. As well, all the videos are accessible. So I send them a list. Then I said, I'll put up a proper class. So I ran, I think, 2 weeks of just classes, just go upgrade. So it was yoga based, but we're not holding a pose. We want to move the body in a certain direction, then upgrade that connectivity along that particular kinetic chain, whether it be, is it muscle, or is it tendon, ligament, or is it fascia? And yes. So you want to work with everything. So you're working through the skin, the fascial system, working on the particular pandiculations, everything. So that's what I've done. So I'll take that further as well. And everyone's going, when are you going to open up a YouTube channel? So,
I was just going to ask you that, like if people could access those videos, anybody watching this could go on and watch them.
They can though. So there's my stuff. So under Facebook, you can go to Fitzgerald, but there's also, if you find me under that, but you could look under Connects Therapy. So that's KINX.
Okay.
So in the Connects Therapy, there's the whole series of videos. So it'll just be heaps. But they're very well organised and going, this is your day 1, day 2.
Nice.
Or then it becomes an isolated bit going, let's work with first warrior pose, but we're not working to hold the pose. We're going into the pose, we're creating the pose, then we are somatic movement patterns through the pose.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Well, people said, I've done somatic yoga, and they said, it's nothing like what you do. I went, oh, okay. I don't know I know where somatic yoga came from, but they were a neurophysiologist, and so their background was huge, but I don't know. There's always another way to skin a cat. So,
and you found a nice way.
It works for me. I mean, I still run, and I run really, really well. I still do my sprint training. I've got a dog that trains with me, and it humiliates me, and I just go, and I've even started doing what I do on animals, which has been really cool. Hands-on work on animals, but they can't be horses and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other way that people can get a hold of you, or is Facebook the best way if they want to work with you?
So there's a website.
Okay.
It's called, so the whole thing's called the Connects Therapy, but the website's Total Body Integration, which is really where I'm going.
Yes.
There'll be videos there. There's phone numbers, email addresses, and that. And they're quite welcome. And as I said, it's I'm Australian, and as I said, I'm isolated. And as my dad used to say, don't waste your knowledge. It's not supposed to go and die with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to share it. So that's why everything was put out there, just going, this is going to make a difference to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be arrogant about it. As I just go with people as, your knowledge that you've got is really good, but there's more than one book. And you need as many books as you possibly can to create as much knowledge as you've got. And they're going to go, I'm a yoga person. I went, yes, but who taught you yoga is dictated by what their knowledge is. Mm-hmm. And you need that massive science background and therapist background to understand how that body works and works as one if you want the yoga to be good. Because if you want to just do ego yoga, you can, and I don't do that. I'm not a pretzel. I never wanted to be. But what I wanted to do was be able to run fast, and I love doing that. So if I go to the person, if you can't run, I say something's wrong. If your walking pattern's wrong, it's wrong. It needs to be correct. But if you want to use yoga to try to correct your walking pattern, I'm going to go, you can't. You've got to get the team on the paddock first and put it back together again. Then you can lift it to yoga. But if you can't run, you know something's wrong. If you can't walk properly and your posture's wrong, therefore we have to go back to the fundamentals, to the basics, and reinstall you. As I said, wipe the hard drive, reinstall something. Because you're going to fall apart and you will die. Because you can't violate the second law of thermodynamics, which everything goes into chaos. But your body violates it. It violates the second law of thermodynamics continuously. It wants to stay at this particular point. And then you go and damage it. And then it goes, oh my God, I have to do this. So therefore now chaos starts to happen. If you want to get and be as well as you possibly can, you have to keep putting yourself back together or checking that everything's correct. Then put it back together again. Then install it and make a decision whether you want to just be a 14-year-old and only competent in just doing, I'm doing maths. No, you do arithmetic. You need to go through your algebra to get your calculus, then you want to get in a higher level maths. But if you've been in a body that's designed to go to the Olympics and be able to do all those maths concepts, then you need to challenge the body to get better and better physically, plus also knowledge and that. So don't just sit back all the time. Just go, the body's not working fine. I need to find out why it's not working fine and self-correct it. Yeah.
Don't expect to do calculus when you have never done addition. Right? Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was really, really great.
I think lovely. What you've done is wonderful. Like when it came up and you were like going to interview and have a chat, I went, I really wanted to have a good chat with you.
Yeah.
Other people, and then you see who they are, and they're just having a chat. And I went, that is such a good thing because there's so many cool people who are so far away.
I know. And there's so many of us doing really fun work, and we're all doing it differently.
Yes.
And that's what I find. Every single time I've done one of these interview chat things, it's like I walk away with a lot of ideas. Yes. It's been great.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you. I will put in your website and the name of your company in the comments so people can reach out to you. And I already have one person in mind that I know would like to pick your brain. We'll see if she reaches out. Megan Dupree. Do you know Megan? Have you met her yet?
No, but I've followed her, and then on the Hive Mind, and I'm reading all this stuff.
She loves to geek out. I think she would really love what your philosophy is. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. All
Yeah.
right. You take care. You have a lovely day.
You too. Bye.
Hooroo. Bye for now. Hooroo.